Genghis Khan. The best way to describe the most successful conqueror in history would be on what he said to one of his conquered territories. "I am the punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you." True enough, during the 12th to 13th centuries, Genghis Khan formed one of the largest empires in world history. At its peak, the Mongol Empire covered around 22% of Earth's total land area, as Khan's territories included China, Mongolia, Russia, Central Asia, the Middle East, and parts of Eastern Europe. But he achieved this feat through brutal means. Khan was feared for his unending desire to expand the Mongol Empire. He employed some of the ruthless tactics to subdue entire territories. One of his most brutal actions was massacring the city of Nishapur, leading to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people in his effort to conquer nations using fear. Khan's actions were responsible for the death of at least 40 million people. His empire continued for over 100 years after his death. However, the Khan had so many women in his time that he fathered countless children who continued his bloodline. To this day, around 1 in every 12 Asians can trace their heritage to Genghis Khan. Ivan the Terrible. As his nickname suggests, Ivan the Terrible wasn't necessarily remembered for how good he was to his people. Ivan IV ruled Russia from 1533 to 1584, earning his infamous nickname for being one of the worst people known to man at that point in history. He was a ruthless leader, often lashing out at his family members and closest allies whenever he was angry. Ivan was known for his paranoia, especially when people around him had reasons to try to remove him from power. This led to the creation of a secret police force called the Oprichniki, which was responsible for killing people suspected of disloyalty. But he didn't stop there. In 1570, he massacred thousands of civilians in the city of Novgorod to eradicate anyone who opposed his rule. The worst part was that he killed Ivan Ivanovich, his son and heir, in a fit of rage when he felt that his daughter-in-law was wearing unconventionally light clothing. Ivan the Terrible died of a stroke in 1584, after which Russia has entered a tumultuous era known as the Time of Troubles due to its political instability. Vlad the Impaler. From impaling people to committing mass executions, Vlad the Impaler made his mark as the ruler of Wallachia during the 15th century by becoming one of the cruelest leaders the region had ever seen. His actions eventually inspired the most infamous vampire in fiction. He was known as the Impaler because he favored impalement as his method of execution. This involved forcing a long stake through his victims' bodies and letting them stand in an upright position, forcing them to die slow and agonizing deaths. The brutal method of execution was meant to strike fear into the hearts of his enemies, as he displayed rows of impaled victims to warn anyone who wanted to oppose his rule. In the end, he was reportedly killed and decapitated in one of his campaigns against the Ottoman Empire. Elizabethbie. One of the worst cases of vanity in human history involves Countess Elizabethbie, a noble Hungarian who lived during the 16th and 17th centuries. She is one of history's most infamous serial killers, and her obsession with youth and beauty fueled her actions. As she aged, Báthory realized she was no longer as beautiful as she was. Her declining beauty prompted her to lure young girls to her castle with promises of employment. However, the truth was that she subjected them to torture and murder, beating and mutilating them to death. After that, she bathed in the blood of the young women she killed, in the hopes that doing so would keep her young and beautiful. Rumors of her crimes eventually reached the authorities. In 1610, Báthory was arrested and imprisoned in her castle until her death 4 years later. Báthory's heinous crimes inspired countless vampire stories, and she is widely regarded as one of history's first vampiric figures because of her insatiable thirst for blood. Caligula. Although Caligula meant little boot, a nickname given to him when he was a child, Gaius Caesar became more known for his cruelty. It should be noted that historical accounts of his cruelty may be biased, as they were written after his death. He started his rule as a popular leader, but as he became more obsessed with power, Caligula descended into madness, demanding the people to worship him as a god. Believing that he had supreme power over Rome's subjects as a god emperor, he committed violent acts, including executing people without trial. His victims included his family members, who were executed out of mere suspicion. Caligula was also known for his depraved and perverse acts, including incest with his sisters. When the cruel emperor wasn't executing his subjects, he imposed heavy taxes to fund his lavish lifestyle and extravagant projects, including a luxurious luxurious palace for his horses. Caligula had become so cruel and depraved that his guards and closest advisors could not stand him anymore. At the end of a 4-reign rule marked by tyranny and brutality, he was assassinated by the very same men who were supposed to protect him. Kim Jong-il. The Kim family has maintained dictatorial control over North Korea ever since it was divided. Kim Il-sung was the country's first ruler, but his son, Kim Jong-il, succeeded him after his death. Like his father, Kim Jong-il was a dictator. His regime was oppressive and extravagant at the expense of his people, who suffered in poverty. Because of his socialist beliefs, Jong-il enforced harsh policies that suppressed civil liberties. He punished anyone who had opposing opinions about his rule, all while he enjoyed his lavish lifestyle as a drunken man who was known as Hennessy Cognac's best customer. Under Jong-il's rule, North Korea faced famine because the government focused more on building the country's military might in the hopes of obtaining nuclear weapons. He brainwashed people through fear and propaganda, preventing the citizens from speaking out of line. Kim Jong-il committed countless human rights violations while forcing people into labor camps. No one was safe from his rule, including kidnapped South Koreans and other foreign citizens. His government was also suspected of having ties with international terrorist organizations and drug cartels. Jong-il died in 2011 and was succeeded by his equally cruel son, Jong-un, who continued the Kim family's iron rule over North Korea. Adolf Hitler. Perhaps difficult to imagine, but the would-be dictator known as Adolf Hitler was once a helpless young boy who endured his aggressive father's abuses, eventually becoming an angry young man himself. With no prospects in life after getting rejected from art school, he turned to anti-Semitism writings and believed that the German Aryan people were a superior race and that the Jews were not fit to be Germans. He moved out of Austria and eventually joined the German army. After the First World War, he joined the German Workers' Party and rose to power as its leader. The party became the dominant group in Germany and were known as the Nazis. As the group's leader, Hitler believed in an idea called Nazism, which promoted the superiority of the Aryans over everyone else. Hitler's war efforts were rooted in his belief that war was the only way for the German race to gain the necessary living space for their expansion. At the same time, he targeted the Jews to eliminate them from Europe, killing 6 million of them in an event known as the Holocaust. Under his rule, he ordered Germany to invade neighboring countries, killing at least 60 million people. However, as the Soviet forces closed in on Berlin, Hitler knew that defeat was imminent. He took his own life inside his bunker in April 1945. Heinrich Himmler. While Adolf Hitler was the overall leader of the Nazi Party, Heinrich Himmler was the executioner of the Nazis' twisted plans of exterminating the Jews. Himmler rose as the head of the Schutzstaffel, often called the SS, a military organization under the supervision of the Nazis. He implemented brutal policies, including rounding up Jews and placing them in concentration camps, where they were systematically murdered. The most infamous concentration camp was Auschwitz, where over 1 million people were killed under Himmler's direct orders. But Himmler's SS also played a role in suppressing the rights of German citizens. He established the Gestapo, a secret police with the SS responsible for using harsh methods of investigating cases of treason and espionage in the country. The Gestapo was legally allowed to operate above the law, allowing its members to do whatever they wanted. Himmler, however, betrayed Hitler when he entered peace talks with the Allies, after realizing that Germany was on the verge of defeat. He attempted to go into hiding after betraying Germany, but was captured by the British forces. Himmler died by consuming a cyanide pill while he was in British custody in May 1945. Nero. Ruling from AD 54 to 68, Nero became one of the most infamous emperors in the history of the Roman Empire because of his corrupt and wicked practices. He was a tyrant whose cruelty knew no bounds, often taking extreme measures to maintain his power. One of the cruelest acts Nero committed was murdering family members, including his mother, so that no one could question his rule over Rome. During that time, he indulged in extravagant parties and spent taxpayers' money to fuel his need for luxury. There's a belief that he set fire to Rome to clear space for his new projects. It was even rumored that he danced to the fiddle while Rome was burning and his people were suffering. He blamed Christians for the fire and persecuted them throughout his rule. He hunted down and killed them to divert people's attention from his actions. Christians were killed in the worst ways possible, including getting set on fire and being torn apart by animals